You flipped out and tried to leave without saying goodbye?
Hey there, movie fans. Thank you so much for tuning in to this review of the 2024 edition of Speak No Evil. First off, I have to apologize. I am working from home right now, so a little bit different of an environment, but appreciate you tuning in nonetheless. As with all my reviews, this review is going to be spoiler free, so you're safe to watch this review before you choose whether or not you want to see this movie. I had a chance to see this movie last night in theaters and had a lot of thoughts, particularly about how this movie relates to the original movie, which came out actually not that long ago. It was a Swedish film, but is in English for those that are interested. And we start every review with a synopsis. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps the channel out. So I appreciate that so much. All right, so let's dive into the synopsis. Pretty simple premise. This is a movie about a American couple and their daughter who take a holiday vacation with in the British countryside with a couple that they met on a separate vacation, and they decide to stay with them for a weekend at their remote cottage. And that's really the premise of the movie. Why don't we start with the positives? With all these reviews, I kind of look at the movie based off 7 different areas. I look at the visuals, the sound, the acting, the directing, the editing, the story, and just the overall entertainment. But I want to start with the most positive element about this movie, which is the acting, and particularly the acting of the lead actor, Mackenzie Davis, one of the 2 lead actors. She is absolutely outstanding in this movie. I've been a fan of Mackenzie Davis since I first saw her in the AMC TV show Speak No Evil, or excuse me, the AMC show was Halt and Catch Fire. And she actually starred in that show with one of the other actors who's in this film, Scoot McNairy. Mackenzie did outstanding in her role, and it was a role that was in the original not that big of a role, and they definitely amped it up for this version, and she did truly outstanding. And that's where the positives of this movie pretty much end. So looking at the movie just in the order of the different facets we look at, first is the visuals. I mean, there's nothing visually that interesting about this film outside of the fact it's filmed in a gorgeous location in Europe. But outside of that, there's nothing unique about the cinematography, about the lens choices, about how this movie was filmed, about lighting decisions. This was a pretty straightforward presentation. And I could say the same about the sound design and the sound of this film. The original movie, which I really enjoyed, was not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a really good movie. And you can tell a lot of care was put into how it was filmed and what it looked like and what it sounded like. Sound design was a crucial part of the first film. And this was pretty bare bones. They did what they needed to do in regards to they filmed it and they got clean audio, but nothing artistic was done in either of those areas. Acting outside of Mackenzie Davis's portrayal, that was about it in regards to quality acting. Scoot McNairy, who I mentioned, I'm a fan of Scoot McNairy. I liked him in *Halt and Catch Fire* with Mackenzie Davis. His portrayal of the lead protagonist was pretty abysmal. At no point is it very believable. They really try to create this tension between him and his wife, played by Mackenzie Davis, that doesn't really work. It's not very believable, and it's unfortunate. I think the problem that Scoot McNairy was dealing with was just a bad script. And it's really confusing how you can take a movie that was a successful movie in regards to how it was written, how it was filmed, how it was created, and then try to make a remake and then make it so much worse. You already have all the right ingredients, which were given to you. They tried to make his character both weak and aggressive at the same time, and it just didn't seem to fit. And you can tell that Scoot McNairy is not sure how to portray an actor, which they are not giving him any clear direction in the script or in the directing of this film. James McAvoy, I'm pretty split on James because he was in the movie Split. Um, I normally like his characters. I mean, look at him in the movie Split, or look at him in Mr. Glass. Um, he is really good at portraying so many different roles, and he really embodies physically will embody a role that he gets into. But in this, he seemed like a comic book superhero version of the villain. It felt very well. I'm just watching James McAvoy all beefed out on screen. I'm not really watching a character on screen, and it's hard to believe any of the tension that they're trying to portray, because this is just James McAvoy acting to an 11. In fact, at the theater I was in particular, most of the audience was laughing throughout the entire movie. This is not supposed to be a comedic movie, but they're laughing at the over portrayal of the antagonist in James McAvoy's character. The directing, I think, is one of the lowest parts in this film. Once again, you were given all the right pieces in the original, and you really mucked it up in the directing, in the editing, and in how this is put together. This is a simple story, which is what happens when you try to be polite? What happens when you try not to offend people? How far will you go to not try to ripple the waters? And how much will you let have happen to you? And in fact, that is an integral line in both the original and the remake. And this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but why are you doing this? And the reason it's not spoiled is because it's in the trailers. Why are you doing this? Because you allowed us to, because you let us do this to you. Well, that was believable in the original. You believe it. You believe the family's story. You believe their plight, and you believe their arcs in the original film. You do not believe it in the remake of this. None of it really breaks that willing suspension of disbelief. You are just you are very aware that you're just watching actors on a screen, and the decisions that they make in the remake, the 2024 version, feel so amplified and so unrealistic that it really takes you out of the story in this. So was this an entertaining movie? Not really. Not really. I wouldn't say so. There are two types of audiences that I think are going to see this movie. There's the audience that saw the original, and they're going to be really disappointed in this movie because of how great the original was, and how poor the remake was, and how Americanized the remake was. And that's all I can say without spoiling it. And the second audience that's going to see this movie are people that either didn't see the original, or don't know there's original, or don't care there's original. And what they're going to be served up with is a fairly bland, formulaic film that the original movie was this really intense, dramatic thriller. And the remake is turned into this loud, amplified, wannabe action movie that doesn't really know what it is or what it's trying to achieve in its directing, in its story, in its plot, in its character arcs. It really just falls flat, and it's such a shame, because once again, you were given all the right pieces. There's no reason you should not have been able to achieve a better film with this. So the scoring, visuals, I give it a 5 out of 10. Sound, a 5 out of 10. Acting, a 6 out of 10. Listen, the acting would have been a 3 out of 10 had it not been for Mackenzie Davis. Directing and editing both get a 2 out of 10. Story gets a 1 out of 10. They took a simple story that was executed very well in the original, and they made it so much worse, and none of it makes sense. There's so many plot holes in the remake. Entertainment, I give it a 2 out of 10. That's a 23 out of 70. That's a 32%, 32.9%. That's an F. Letterbox, I gave it 1 star out of 5. I wouldn't even wait for streaming. This is not worth watching. Do yourself a favor. The original is on streaming. I think I saw the original on Shudder, or it's on Tubi. Find the original, watch that. It is so much more of an impactful film. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. If there are other movies you want me to review or you want me to check out, put it in the comment section below. If you saw this movie, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Spoiler free, of course. Really appreciate you tuning in. We'll talk to you all in the next screening. Take care, everyone.